Good morning. This is a video demonstrating how you are going to create your small scale ladder. Of course, we know the ladder was one of the simple tools that we learned to use in the early technological ages. But we're going to build one a little bit more recent, but again, we're going to be building it out of balsa wood. Now remember, the rules for the project are that your supports, the sides of your ladder must be 8 inches tall. Your rungs, which are the parts of the ladder that you step on, must be 1 inch wide. The bottom rung must be 1 inch from the bottom. Each rung is 1/8 of an inch. And there is a 1 inch gap between the top of one rung and the bottom of the rung above it. Okay? So what I have here is I have a 24-inch piece of balsa wood, and I have my ruler. Okay? Remember our phrase that we use a lot: measure twice, cut once. And the reason why is because once you cut, you can't go back. So we're going to make sure that we do our best to make sure that our measurements are right on target. All right, so again, I'm going to need 2 8-inch support posts, which are the sides of my ladder. Okay, so I'm going to take my construction material and I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to make a tick mark at the 8-inch point. And again, so I'm starting as close to the edge where the 1 inch at 0 is possible. I'm matching my material up, and there is 8 inches. So I'm going to make a tick mark right here, 8 inches. Okay? Now I'm going to make another tick mark. I'm going to measure another 8 inches, so I'm going to move this tick mark down to 0, okay, because I want another 8-inch piece. So I'm going to match this tick mark up down here so that this is 8 inches, and then I'm going to make another tick mark here. So this piece and this piece, okay, are now my 2 8-inch support pieces. All right. So now we're going to remember, now I need my 7 1-inch pieces. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to move my construction material, and then I'm going to make tick marks at each 1-inch mark. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay? So there I have my 7 1-inch rungs and my 2 support posts. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my safety glasses, because I'm going to put my safety glasses on. Safety glasses on. Now I'm going to grab my timber cutter. If you have not watched the safety video on using the timber cutter, you have to make sure that you preview that video first so that you use the timber cutter safely. Okay? Again, make sure that now I can clear my workspace, because I don't need my ruler anymore. The only thing that I need now is just my timber cutter and my construction material. Okay? I want to make sure that the marks that I made on my construction material are pointed up so that I can see them when I'm ready to cut. Now again, I'm going to slide my material underneath my blade. Now again, remember that you shouldn't have anything dangling, no necklace dangling or anything like that, because again, you don't want any of that stuff getting caught in the timber cutter. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is, again, we're going to hold our construction material in place. Okay, and then we're going to match up the tick mark with the blade and then gently press down. So there is my first 8-inch support rung. Okay, now I'm going to cut the second support rung. And there's my second support rung. So now, 2 support rungs. 2 8-inch support rungs. 2 8-inch supports. Now I'm going to cut the 7 1-inch rungs. Okay? Here's 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. And 1 more. Again, watch your fingers as you're cutting this last piece because it's pretty short. So 7. So there's my 7 1-inch rungs, and this last piece I'm going to put to the side because just in case any of my pieces are a little bit short, a little bit long, I can adjust. Okay? So once I do this, now it's time for me to kind of match up where I'm going to place these. And again, remember, when you're cleaning off your timber cutter, just gently tap it, make sure there's no pieces left in it. Okay? So I'm going to put that to the side. Now on my support rungs, now I have to measure where I am going to put my rungs. And again, remember that bottom rung needs to start 1 inch from the bottom. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tick mark on both of these rungs at 1 inch. Okay? And because my material is 1/8 of an inch wide, I'm going to put my next tick mark there. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is from the top of this rung to the bottom of the next one, I know there has to be 1 inch. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to move my ruler, okay, and then measure 1 inch. Okay? So this is where the second rung will go. And I'm going to repeat that process. All right. So now that this is done, okay, I'm going to organize my ladder to make sure everything lines up. And you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm lining up all the rungs. I'm lining up all the rungs in between those 2 tick marks that I made. Now again, you guys will be using the perforated boards. Me, I'm using a piece of paper. Okay? So we do this because we want to make sure that all of our parts are fairly well even, okay? And that if there's any part that's not right, we can adjust. Okay? So this is what your finished ladder, or prior to gluing, this is what your ladder will look like. Okay? All right. So the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to glue our ladder together. You are not going to pour glue on your edges. We're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to put a dab of glue on each end. Then you're going to line it up. And then you're going to let that piece dry. So I'm going to take these other pieces out. So while those are gluing together, then we'll continue putting the rest of these pieces together. And I'll show you the last bit in a minute. Alright, so now we're going to finish up our ladder. We're going to put glue on each one of these ends. Make sure it matches up. In between. Some of you might be saying, Mr. Wilson, why don't you adjust the measurements so that the ladder is even from the top and the bottom? Well, I would say to you that if you look at many ladders, especially the ones with two sides, where you can climb up one side and where it's more like a V, well, they always have a center at the top. And me personally, I like the, again, this is STEM, so we talk about STEM things. Remember one of those first lessons that you learned in science class, and it's probably 5th or 6th grade, when they taught you about fulcrums? Yes. Again, this is a STEM class, so science, technology, engineering, and math. So when we talk about fulcrums, where fulcrums were that point in the middle where your pressure is, so that center piece, okay, where the two sides of the ladder come together, that fulcrum piece, or we could call that, in some of our engineering, we can call that also like a joint, or where two parts come together. All right, and our last and final piece is here. Okay? Now again, you're going to have this on your perforated board. So on your perforated board, none of this it's not going to stick to the, well, it might stick to the perforated board a little bit. However, the perforated board, it slides easily off. But this is your completed ladder. You will take this, you will put it into your locker. You will let it dry, and then on the following day, you'll take it out. You'll be able to remove this from your perforated board. Okay? Once you remove it from your perforated board, you'll be able to color it, design it, and then attach it to your blueprint paper, and then you will turn that in. All right. Any questions? Ha! Gotcha. You're about to ask a recording for some questions. Ha! No. All right. You have a great day. Thus ends the what you're going to do to create your ladder.